and they work with local Kenyan believers to continue loving and serving street kids. It's awesome to be here with Charles and Darlene. You know, because of your dedication, your commitment, hundreds and hundreds of former street kids have changed their lives. They've had the ability to learn, they've gotten full-time jobs, and they've discovered the amazing love of God. So I'm excited you're here. Welcome, Charles and Darlene. We also have Amy Surdacki here from Franklin, Tennessee. I'm excited that Amy's here. Amy is the current president of the board of directors for Made in the Streets here in the United States. Amy served as a missionary in Kenya many years ago and then began serving with Made in the Streets in 2014. She works full-time right now as a high school economics teacher in Tennessee, and we're thrilled to have Amy as well. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I've got some questions for you guys and can't wait to hear what you have to share with us. I'm going to start with Charles and Darlene. And I'm really curious about how you guys are doing. How has this COVID-19 pandemic impacted you? How are you dealing with the lockdown? How are you spending your time each day?
Well, we started using Zoom, and hello to all our friends out there. And I just got a note a few minutes ago from one of our graduates in Nairobi named Rashid, who said, "I'm ready and waiting for this broadcast." So hello, Rashid.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And for us too, it's kind of a reversal of the parent-child relationship, because now it's Brenda that tells us, no, you can't go out. We'll just do it for what do you need? We'll get it. Just stay there.
Well, it's meant for me that I've started walking. I've walked over 900 kilometers since this started, or over 540 miles, which is different for me, but it's improving my health, which is neat. The big thing though is that we're not in Nairobi. Yeah. We're not with our team. We're not with the kids. We're missing that, but still, life is good.
Right, and I know that's disappointing to you guys. I know we have a lot of people disappointed they're not able to be with other people, the people they love. Mm-hmm. I'm thrilled about your walking though, Charles. That's fantastic. That's a lot of miles you put in. What would you guys say has been the most surprising thing during this lockdown?
Well, just it's a life change. We've been with just the street ministry, 29 years. We're in Kenya. It's such a change. It's such a change, and we're not doing anything to run it or advise even, and just to watch our team just take care of things. I mean, we're not needed, which is a good thing.
I haven't spent a lot of time reading in the last few years because of the work, but Darlene and I are now reading the books of N.T. Wright, like New Testament in its World, and now we're reading Simply Jesus, and this is helping reinvigorate us. And so that's been, it's kind of surprising that we could read and get excited again about life in Christ and about ministry.
I think it's great. I know we talk a lot about the hardships that come from this pandemic, and yet there are some positive things that have happened. Getting to spend time with family, getting to read, getting to walk. And I think one of the things you mentioned, Darlene, that's fantastic is it's been able to highlight how well our team is doing in Kenya, which a lot of people might not know, and they might think that Charles and Darlene are doing the majority of the work, whereas right now we know that the Kenyan team is really doing the majority of work. Let me ask you about Kenya a little bit. I mean, because that's really what we want to know about today. The current situation is different in Kenya. It's not the same as in the United States. As of today, there's a little over 1,300 active cases of COVID-19 in the country of Kenya. There's about 56 deaths is what they're reporting from the virus. There's been quite a few recoveries from the virus as well. I think the harder things in Kenya are the sequential, or the lockdowns, the quarantine that people are under. There's a curfew from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. every single night. You can get in big trouble if you violate that curfew. People have to wear masks every time they go into a store or a marketplace or any time a retail environment. When they travel, they have to wear a mask. And then more recently, we found out that the government has locked down more specifically certain neighborhoods, like the Eastleigh neighborhood is locked down and banned from in and out travel, and the Old Town neighborhood of Mombasa is locked down, and there's a boundary around it. People can't get in and out. So I just wonder, as you guys sit back and you take all this in, and as you're watching the news unfold from Kenya, what's your perspective like? I mean, what do you think about these situations, and what are some of the unique things you've noticed that are happening in Kenya right now?
Well, one of the things that we're concerned about is the fact that there's trouble is compounded in Kenya. Not only is there the pandemic and all the things that you've described, but there's also the locusts that are eating up all the crops across northern Kenya and other countries around as well. And there have been floods. They're expecting rainfall continuing through the next few months. And there have been floods in various places in the country. So there are a lot of difficulties facing people in Kenya right now. We're just glad that we have a great place for our team and our kids to be, where they are not as impacted by that and they're able to take care of themselves. But we are concerned about Eastleigh, concerned about the kids there, because
for sure,
with stuff locked down, there's less food available, less opportunity for them to move around and take care of themselves. And so, and who knows what's happening? We don't know what's going on in Eastleigh right now.
Yeah, I know when you lived in Kenya, you lived in Eastleigh for quite some time. I mean, many years you lived in that neighborhood on a regular basis. Did you ever deal with any similar situations like this? I mean, were there any other crisis that you went through while you were living there, or is this the first of its kind?
Well, other kinds of things that brought great trouble. In 2008, there was a major tribal conflict that had to do with politics in the country. And our team members at that time, there were places in Nairobi where they could not go if they were from a certain tribe. And so that really, it limited our ability to work across the city in 2008 at least. And then after that calmed down, then, the problem's not been there so much anymore. Now our team is free to move around the city if there weren't a pandemic.
Then there was a cholera epidemic. And what we did was we got, hundreds, almost 1,000 bottles of Clorox bleach. And us and our team, we just went down into Mathare and passed them out and tried to tell people for the first time ever that they would need to, sanitize their water to make it pure, and how to do it and how much, and not to be afraid of doing that this is going to save your life. So that's something. But we were free to walk around Mathare and do that and relate to people, and it was a kind of a win-win.
So I hear you saying that the virus is one aspect, but the other related issues like the quarantine and the lockdown and the loss of jobs and maybe even food scarcity in Kenya are even bigger problems than the virus itself. Is that what you're saying? And is that specifically even harder in Eastleigh?
Oh, I think it may be, because they've shut down the malls and they've shut down a lot of the food supply businesses. So you can go to stores and buy some food, but of course people have less money and the street kids don't have anything. And so it's much more difficult for them now. I expect lives will be lost to hunger and violence as a result of it, not just from being sick.
Also, just from living there, we realized that they're not counting everything. Like, they had a census while we were living in Eastleigh. And we talked to our neighbors. It's like, so are you going to, and it's at midnight, right? They're coming around. Are you going to open your door to a census taker, even if they have a card, because, you can get copies of cards already? No. And so they don't come to the slums. They just make an estimate.
Oh, wow.
And so we're worried that it's a lot worse than the numbers would show.
I think that's a valid point, and I think it makes a lot of sense that you're saying that. I really could see how the concern of not just this virus, but the fear that people have. I know some of the conversations I've had with people in Kenya have been more on the side of fear, really, than anything else. And you hear conversations of people saying, well, I'm afraid I'm going to get it if I leave my house, but I'm afraid if I don't leave my house, I might have enough food. I don't have enough food to eat. Mm-hmm. How do you think people in Eastleigh, and especially in those slum areas where our street kids come from, how are they responding, and how are they surviving or making it through on a day-to-day basis?
I'm thinking the street kids will find a way to get around. I mean, it's all cordoned off. You can't get in and out of Eastleigh, they say. They will find a way to get out and find food, which could be dangerous, but that's what I think.
So that resiliency and that effort to survive is really kicked in for them more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're pretty creative and persistent. They'll find a way.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I want to shift a little bit over and talk about the MITS team and kind of what they're doing right now in response to this. You know the team well. You've spent many, many years with lots of these team members. How would you rate their response? How would you describe the way that they're handling the pandemic? How would you describe the way they're dealing with the lockdowns and the restrictions?
I think they get a 10.
Yeah, me too. Out of 10. Yeah, one thing, you know, they've done such a good job of, like with the fear of getting the kids with us really to buy into the lockdown. And just a quick funny story. So they're buying mandazis, kind of like donuts for breakfast, and it's from a church member. So one day the driver comes and he's delivering the mandazis to the girls' skills. Now remember, these 3 kids have been put down all their lives. So Monica, one of the girls, goes out to receive them, and he's not wearing a mask. And she says, "We can't receive these." And he says, "Yes, you can. Here. No, you don't have a mask on? I am not." And so he went back to the vehicle, put on a mask, brought the mandazis over. She took them and she said, "Now, how hard was that?" So I think
great.
They bought into the whole thing with the mask, etc.
I think they've done a good job. Yeah, they've done a good job with their own kids too. Yeah. Over at Mittsville, where a lot of our team members live, where our house is, they've had a schedule for the kids, the time they stay in, the time they can go out and ride their bicycles in that little acre community. Moses' wife, Nina, who's working at home, she has a job with another company. She's working at home. So she's had the Mittsville kids come over there, Victor's kids and, Jackson's kids and all to her house, and they can play video games and watch cartoons and all and help take care of her little 1-year-old baby. And Kelsey, Victor and Angie's oldest girl, was over there one day, and the Minister of Health came on television telling about what's going on with the coronavirus. And the kids have gotten to calling him the Corona Man because he's the one who always comes on. And Kelsey said, "We don't have to listen to him. He only has bad news." And so anyway, they're handling it really well. One of the neat things is that Olive, who's one of our dorm supervisors and former sewing instructor, she made masks for all the people out at Kamulu and for people in the community and for our team to take into Eastleigh to give to street kids. Joel has taken over the task of supplying all the food and finding creative ways to go places where he can social distance and still get food. Patricia, Irene says that most of them don't want to go anywhere, like if somebody gets sick, but Patricia has said, if somebody's sick, I'll take them to the doctor. And so she's done all of that as they've needed to go out to clinics. Charles, who's our mechanic, he's got a car. So he drives from Ruai over to the center every day, and he goes and picks up Helen Muga and Rose Wanjiru, so they don't have to ride public transport and be exposed to the virus. He brings them so they can do their work. And so it's been an exciting thing to see how they're taking care of one another.
That's great. That is so good. And I think hearing those stories about those team members just highlights what has been so essential to MITS from the beginning, which is leadership development. I mean, a core component of the MITS mission is developing leaders. So, I mean, to hear these stories and hear you talk about how our local leaders in Kenya are excelling in this way is just awesome. Let me ask you one more question just along those lines. What do you think has been, how would you say they've really shined? Like, what components of their leadership have you seen within the Kenyan team really really show up during this crisis? What is it about them that makes them uniquely able to handle these kind of critical times?
Well, okay, one thing is that they really do work well together, and they've learned over the years what each one's strengths is, and so they know what they need to have people do. So as soon as there was news about this lockdown, they had a team meeting, and Angela said it just took us a few minutes to figure out who was going to do what. They came up with a plan to protect Kamulu. Monica, who's the leader over at Eastleigh, put together a plan for them doing something for street kids as long as they could. And so she went to the authorities over there and talked them into letting her come in with food and with information about the coronavirus and with Bible studies. So they let her come in for 2 hours every week for several weeks until they locked Eastleigh down. Jackton and Millie figured out things they could do for the graduates and began to work to help them start new businesses if they lost their jobs and take care of things. They went to work finishing the buildings that we have out there. That's great. They came up with a plan, and there's a reason why.
And it's a big shout out to everyone who's come to Kenya to help. And this also a shout out to God, because just a few months before the pandemic arrived, then we had a couple come and teach crisis, preparation. This is Brenda and Troy. And they figured that out, not for a pandemic, but a lot of other crises. And then also we had a group from Australia come, and Debbie and Alan Rowley led us into design thinking. And so that what might it look like if? And I think they were so prepared, like, okay, this is a crisis. And what might it look like if we did this or that to respond? They were ready. So thank you to everyone who's come and done any kind of a seminar.
One of the big things our team has said is that we need to give honor to Francis Mbuvi for his calm leadership during this time. That is a very special thing, that there's calmness as they deal with crises and problems that arise.
I think it's so awesome to hear you say that. It is such a testament to the time that you've put in, that our mission trip people have put in, to so many visitors, and to God. What God has done to really raise up Mbuvi and the others as these incredible leaders. We're now seeing it. This is why God's been working in their lives for all these years. And so it's exciting to see what they will even do more of in the future. If they can get through this, man, they're going to be able to get through all kinds of things. I'm excited. Now I want to turn the questions now to Amy for a few minutes here. I've got just a couple of questions, Amy, and thanks for joining us. It's so great to have you. Amy, when the pandemic first began to emerge here in the U.S. around early March, we started to see that this was going to cause problems around the world. What were some of the things that the MITS board was most concerned about at that time?
Well, we were really concerned about two different things. One is that our students and our staff really live in close quarters. For those who aren't familiar with our setup, we have 3 dorms. We have a boys' dorm and a girls' dorm near the school. And then we have a skills center dorm where the oldest students stay. And most of our staff live in what we call Mitsville, right there in Kamulu, which is a suburb of Nairobi, all together. And that's a lot of contact with a lot of people. And our staff have significant duties every day and care for all our students who are all teenagers. And so we were concerned because at other boarding schools in Kenya, students were being sent home. And our students do not have a safe and secure home to go to. So I was afraid that we wouldn't be allowed to stay in place, but that hasn't been a problem. And the local Kenyan government and the authorities have done a great job in being very firm. And so that's all going well. And the other thing that we were concerned about was that the hardest hit industries have been salons and restaurants, and over half of our graduates are in those industries. And of course, our new graduates who will graduate this December, it's going to be difficult, just like here, new graduates going to be very difficult to find work. And our recent graduates are the ones that are most vulnerable to layoffs or being furloughed without pay, which is what's happening, and just like any other country in the world. So we're concerned about investing in our Into the World program for graduate care.
Yeah, that's good. And it's good to know that the board was staying in touch and staying connected with what was going on in Kenya, as well as here in the US. I mean, obviously this situation, it caught us all off guard. I don't think any of us could have imagined the current situation we would be in right now. We couldn't have predicted it. And yet, as you heard Charles and Darlene talk a little bit already, MITS has done some things previously to, I think, get ready for this and to be prepared for an uncertain crisis, something we didn't even know about. What are some of the things the board has seen as important about MITS? What are some that you've seen MITS do previously to help set up to be able to go through this crisis well?
I would say, just like in any family who's stuck in the house together, relationships are going to tell. You'll be able to really tell how people feel about each other.
Yep.
And the culture of the leadership team at MITS, and for those who don't know, our leadership is 100% Kenyan. They're not only amazing administrators, they are just stellar human beings, and they have earned their respect through love. And so the culture at Mittsville, at the Literacy Center, which is our school where the students go first, and then our skills center where they get their vocational training, is just amazing. I had a student tell me one time, I wanted to come to MITS because I was told that I wouldn't be beaten there. And that's, if you're living on the streets and you're saying, somebody's saying, hey, you have a second chance, you can come to our program, finish your school, get job training, you're going to be afraid. What are you going to do to me? How are you going to treat me? And the culture that I've seen firsthand, and that we all, many of us have, is just one of love and respect. And that goes a long way when you're all stuck in close quarters together. And another thing is that a chunk of our staff are former graduates of the program themselves, maybe, 20% at any given time. And they can best relate to the fears and the stresses that this is putting on students, which might be different from somebody else. And that's a real strength.
I think that's good. That's great. Let me ask you this. Going forward, and I know this is a tough question, but how will things be different? What will MITS be like in the future? What can people expect from MITS over the next few months, even the next few years? Can you make any predictions?
Well, we're going to have more graduate care. Our Into the World program, led by Jackton and Millie, keeps graduates connected. We have hundreds of graduates, keeps them connected, and provides spiritual and physical support when needed. And we're going to need more of that for our graduates. And also, we estimate there are going to be a lot more street kids, because the economic upheaval that this is causing is going to just create more of a street kid problem. When I say kids, I mean teenagers. That's who we serve. And that also means that we're going to focus more on creating and developing more leadership and more leadership training for those in Kenya who want to do the same thing we've been doing for 25 years very successfully. We've learned a lot, and we have a lot to offer those who want to do those kinds of things.
I think one of the points you made there, I don't want to miss it. I want to highlight it. Actually, more need, not less need. I think, we're going to see this pandemic is coming and going and maybe getting back to normal. I think in places like Kenya, especially in Eastleigh, and places where you have children living on the streets, the need's about to skyrocket. The work that MITS is going to do in the next few years may be the most critical work it's ever done. So I appreciate bringing that up and mentioning that. Which kind of leads me to another question. And this is for everybody here, Charles and Darlene and Amy, this is for all of you guys. Most of the messages we hear about hardship, most of the messages we hear about people suffering and losing things. But the question I've been getting more than any other question has probably been, how can we help? Or what does MITS need right now? What can we do? And I love that. I love that people feel that generosity and they feel that need to want to help. And so I'll ask you, Charles and Darlene, how would you answer that question? And then I'll ask Amy the same thing, but what would you say to people who say, what can we do? How can we help?
Well, for 25 years, we've been begging for money. And so any money we could get would be a blessing. But another thing is making contact with our team members and making contact with our students through email or phone calls or whatever, just Facebook, making contact with them and being encouraging to them, and just offering contact with the rest of the world. So again, they know that there are others who believe in what they believe in and who want the poorest of the poor to have the best things that God has to offer their lives. So that, again, that relationship is probably the most important thing to us.
That's great. Amy, how would you answer it? What would you tell people who want to help?
I always have said, this is, if Jesus were walking the earth in physical flesh today, this is what he would be doing. These kids are not, there are not a lot of programs out there that do what we do. And I would just echo what Charles and Darlene said. I've been saying $25 for 25 years. If you can give $25, if 1 million people gave $25, we'd have $25 million. It's the small donations that are super helpful. And also those contact emails and numbers, contact emails are on our website. So if you want to just write a note of encouragement to our team, they would love to hear that supporters are actually thinking for them and praying about them.
That's fantastic. I love what you guys said. Connecting with the team, connecting with students. You can do that through our website, donating, giving money to help with this increasing need that's going to be out there on the streets. You can do that on the website, madeinthestreets.org, and then praying. You've all said that, just praying that God would intervene and God would help make a difference for these kids. This has been a fun time. This has been incredible. I thank you guys for joining me on this call. I'm looking forward to doing more of these calls. And more than anything, we want to thank everybody who's watching and who partners with Made in the Streets. It's cliche to say we're all in this together, but when it comes to Made in the Streets and the work of loving and serving street kids, we are all in this together. We really are. So thank you so much for investing in this ministry and investing in the lives of street children. I want to just give one more fun shout out. You've heard mentioned that we wanted to assist alumni and we wanted to raise some money to help the alumni who have lost jobs, either in the salon industry or in the restaurant business, anything related to. So just in the last week, you've come on board, supporters, partners, and you raised $6,500 to go towards our Made in the Streets alumni to help them with groceries, with rent, with starting new businesses. We're pumped about that, and we're sending those funds over to Kenya here in just the next couple of days. So thank you for donating to that. Thank you for donating to our ongoing expenses. We need help with just regular ongoing food and utilities and staff salaries. So every donation makes a difference. Hey, look forward to more of these conversations coming over the next couple of months. We're even going to have one with some Kenya staff members before too long. So join us for that. It's going to be fun. And until next time, asante sana. Kwaheri.
Kwaheri.
Ready.
Kwaheri.